Hey everyone, it's Kaci Messier here on the Stronger Scars YouTube channel, and I just wanted to start by giving a shout out to Bailey for, starting this YouTube channel for the Stronger Scars platform. I think it's an incredible idea and really helpful to get, a face to someone's story and be able to see someone's emotions that you can't see on other forms of social media and a podcast. And two, I also wanted to give Bailey a shout out for sharing my story and, doing really great on the podcast because I got so many different forms of feedback and I got a lot of opportunities on other media platforms. So, I recommend sharing your story on any form of her platform. But my story, to share with you a little bit about that, I got my first concussion my junior year of high school, so I was in soccer, and I just remember feeling like a hard hit and going to the ground. I didn't have the ball, I wasn't near the ball. And then the next day, I went back and watched it on film because I wanted to know what happened, but I knew it was a hard hit. And I realized that I was intentionally hit by a girl completely off ball, and it was a really hard hit. So, I did all the testing for my concussion, and I knew I had a concussion, but we did all the, went through the doctor's process. And the things I struggled with at first a lot were short-term memory and focus problems. And my doctor had said, it'd be a week or so. That's how long concussions typically are when they're officially diagnosed. And I ended up, going week after week thinking, am I done? Am I done yet? Is this over with? And it ended up being 5 months. And I took the concussion test at least 15 times. It was the worst thing ever. And I just could not get my memory back to where it was. That's the part that I struggled with. And I had a hard time believing that it was my concussion that was causing that. And that was a really hard mental battle for me because I would question myself all the time. Is this actually a concussion, or are these symptoms of my concussion? A concussion can't last this long, or, is it just me thinking in too much in my head? So that was really, really hard for me. But, that was my junior year. My senior year, I was back, but I still struggled with, I had bad whiplash in my neck, so I was always going to a chiropractor for that. And my memory and focus weren't great. So, I was a lot better, but I still struggled a lot throughout my months up until college. And I went to college and I was good, but I still just wasn't myself. There was that piece missing. And so my freshman year of college, it was after our first game, in the spring, we had a practice, and I was in a drill. It was one of those drills, non-contact drills, where, someone's just playing dummy defense. And so I had the ball, I was supposed to dodge. And so I dodged and ran into this girl's shoulder because she thought I was going in a different direction. And it wasn't even that hard of a hit, but it was just the right hit. It just was really rattling. And right after it happened, I knew it was a concussion because I just felt angry. And that's what happened with my first concussion, is I felt angry. So I was just I don't want to get tested. I don't want to deal with this again. I was kind of in denial. And so I kept playing in the drills, and then it came to a point where we were switching drills, and my coach would try to explain them to me, and I just literally could not understand. I tried so hard, and I just couldn't. And everyone around me was like, what's wrong? Are you okay? And I just didn't know what to do. I was so rattled. So I just told my coach, I said, look, I gotta go sit down for a second. So I told my trainer, I'm fine, I just need to sit out. But my trainer had to do the concussion protocol because it was clear I was acting very angry and irrational. So I took it, and I was really upset that night, facing the fact that I might have to sit out again, and also knowing that, I I wasn't sure what the journey ahead was going to look like, if it was going to be another 5-month concussion. And they kept telling me, not every concussion's the same, all are different, but I still was really stressed out. I just had my first collegiate game, and I was really, really upset that I, had to sit out, whether that was a week or a month. It just stunk. But, I held my head high, but it ended up being a month-long concussion that was like the worst concussion of my life. I could not get out of bed. I would literally stay in bed all day, and I would go to my academic advisor's office every morning just to, go see what the plan is for the day, lay it all out. And I would end up having a conversation with him, my academic advisor, and being so exhausted from that mentally that I just wrote emails to my teachers that I couldn't come to class, and I would go to bed the rest of the day. And honestly, that whole month is a blur, but that's like the basis of what I remember from it. Fortunately, I came back after a month, so that was really great. Was that it wasn't as long as prior ones. But I felt good after it too. I wasn't fully back to myself before my concussion, my junior year of high school, but I felt like I actually got better from those symptoms in that concussion. So it was my junior year, so this prior year of college. It was the fall, and so we weren't in season or anything, but I had been sitting out because of some heart results that showed up on an EKG, which ended up being totally fine, but I had to sit out for 2 weeks from that, get back to my first practice, and get a stick to the head. So I was completely knocked out, and I knew, and I didn't really cry after any of my concussions, but that one I just cried because I was like so upset because I knew what it was, and I also knew that I had been sitting out for so long, and I was just sick of being hurt. So that was really hard. And the other thing was I knew the doctors had been questioning me playing again since my first concussion, so that was scary. That concussion ended up being like probably around 4 months as well. I struggled from the worst headaches. I would try to do work every day, and my screen, just the lights from the screens would kill my eyes, so my head just hurt so bad. It would be throbbing, and I was dizzy all the time, and nauseous actually, which I hadn't had that symptom at all previously. So that was a lot of harsh symptoms that I hadn't experienced yet, but fortunately I didn't notice at first the memory or focus changes. I think probably because I was so caught up in the physical symptoms. But so yeah, the first couple weeks went by, and I was doing different rehab and PT stuff and vision stuff to help my vision with the trainers. But my symptoms weren't really getting better, and my headaches weren't going away, and every time I ran, I was nauseous. I couldn't turn when I ran because I would literally turn and thought I was going to throw up after I ran a sprint. So it had been a few weeks, I want to say, and I felt like my headaches were a little better. They were less frequent, but I had them every day. And so I started recognizing at that point how bad my short-term memory and focus were. And I was so confused. I went to my trainer, and I was literally crying my eyes out because I was like, this can't be real. These symptoms aren't real. This is all in my head. Please tell me these are actually valid, or they're all in my head. And that was the hardest thing, was I questioned my symptoms every single day. Whether I was normally like this, I just never noticed it, or these were from a concussion. I didn't believe myself, and I, fought myself mentally every day. It just drained me. But, and my trainer did a great job. He would tell me, no, these are real, these are valid, that's part of a concussion, and he did a great job, but it was still a really hard mental battle, and I struggled with memory and focus really, really badly. It made schoolwork very hard. I had accommodations in school, and I really didn't like utilizing them, but I had to use them a lot because I could only get myself to do so much in a day before, I'd only be able to focus for so long, and then headaches would kick in. And my short-term memory just made me so slow. What would take someone to do a 15-minute homework assignment would take me 4 hours to do. It was for months. And being at Notre Dame, that doesn't really fly. So I was struggling more than I've ever struggled in my life. I was mad about getting my concussion, the thought of, is this the last one that they're gonna let me, have? I struggled with, being able to do schoolwork, but also because I was so consumed by schoolwork and I would get headaches when I was done, I didn't see any of my friends. I could barely go to practices, and I just lost like the whole social aspect of my life. And dealing with that mental challenge from the injury, along with, not being able to have the people around you that are supporting you, is so hard. I just felt lonely, and it wasn't even like my friends weren't trying to be supportive. They totally were. I just had myself in this deep hole because of the whole concussion. So right before winter break that semester, basically the doctors had been trying to talk to me about medically retiring, and I was like, if I am given the option, I'm going to choose to be back out on the field. I just can't get myself to say no, even though I knew that wasn't really the right decision because of my concussions. But it ultimately came down to my doctor saying, look, we're giving you the option because we want you to make the choice for yourself, which was valid. That's how it should be. But, if you say you want to step back out in the field, we're going to reevaluate, and we're probably going to have to tell you no. And it ended up I ended up waiting after that conversation and realizing if I say I want to step back out on the field, they're going to tell me no. So I need to, when I'm comfortable, make the decision to medically retire on my own. And so right before winter break, I was so tired of the weeks of just thinking about medically retiring. It was so much weight on my shoulders that I went into my doctor and I said, hand me the paperwork to sign, whatever. I just need to get this over with because, I had so much weight on my shoulders from still dealing with symptoms and not being myself, along with having that decision that I really didn't have. So I just wanted to get it done with and start, it gave me the ability to move forward. I felt like I was moving backwards in everything I did. And I felt like by signing that, I was able to move forward in my life and, focus on, instead of, I have to make this decision or when is this going to go away, I was able to focus on, well, now I have a new chapter in my life. What can I do to start enjoying my life, once my symptoms get better? And although it was the hardest decision I've ever had to make, it was the best decision at that time to help me move forward in some way. So I think from that, I was able to, I still, to this day, so it's been half a year since that happened, I still struggle with the focus aspect a lot. And I still get these terrible migraines where I lose my vision every couple of weeks. And my neck's still not back to par. And so, my concussions have, in the long run, as I've seen, definitely impacted me. And I am not the person that I was before my first big concussion in high school. And that's sad. And I look back at, pictures and videos of me playing sports, and I just, it's like the saddest feeling inside. Like, first of all, not being able to play anymore, but also, wondering where that person went that I was. And I still fight that mental battle every day, but one thing that I guess a couple things I've been able to do to grow from that is, learn to find a new role on the team. So I'm still on the lacrosse team, but, I'm now officially an undergraduate assistant coach. So finding my role as someone cheering on the sidelines and coaching my teammates and giving them advice. And that was a really big change in, my role, but I was able to learn to be just as invested and, get those adrenaline rushes at every game and every practice by seeing my teammates do great things. And so that's not an easy, couple week thing. That took a month, at least a couple of months, and I'm still adjusting to that. But I am so lucky that I can still be on my team and feel like such a big part of it, because my teammates are so welcoming and open and really care to hear my feedback. So I wouldn't be able to do any of this without my teammates. That's one of the biggest things. But, being able to try to just relax and, be okay with not, being okay for the first few months and trying a new role is a large part of it. And it took a lot of patience, which I don't have. But, I'm so grateful that I still have another year to be able to be on the team. And I think another thing I learned was, I wasn't able to go to every single practice still just because my symptoms were still around. So I was able to find time to focus on myself, which I realized throughout my whole concussion I didn't really do. I was able to, realize, well, you've been thinking about your symptoms, you haven't been thinking about you and what you want to do. So I was able to look at, what can I do that, makes me happy, because I never had the years of my life to really think too much about that, because lacrosse and soccer were my happiness. So I was able to have time to really focus on those things, and it was honestly an exciting opportunity to have, because, I was able to expand my, current hobbies and the things and doing things that make me excited. And I was able to find new things. I started volunteering at an animal shelter and helping out with the Notre Dame, student welfare department for athletics. And I was just able to find a lot of other things that made me really happy. And although to this day I am not the person I was before my concussion in high school, I'm definitely a better person because of all of this. I've learned to be so much more hardworking through all of these things. Nobody can see the battle you're going through, and nobody can fully understand that. And that was something I had to learn, is that it's important to share how you're feeling, but also not rely on other people. So, I was a lot stronger internally because of that. I really had to learn to be independent and not rely on someone else to share how I felt. And also, I guess I was able to find things that I never would have done if I hadn't medically retired. So, there are a lot of hard things about my whole situation, but I think I've been able to find opportunities I never would have had because of it. And I truly believe everything happens for a reason. And that was really, really hard for me to see. And it's still hard for me to see. But I am so much stronger mentally and physically because of all this. And, I think my life path has definitely changed, but I think it's changed for the better. And I recommend for anybody else that's dealing with concussions to not be afraid to share what they're going through, but also understand that you cannot, force other people to really understand that fully. And also trust yourself, and it's really hard to do, but when you have symptoms, trust that they're not all in your head. I know a lot of other people struggle with them being, very internal with their injury, but know that, concussions cause these things, and it's really hard to do, but sometimes talking about it is what helps. And I would say my last piece of advice is, your head is one of the most important parts of your body. Don't, sacrifice your head to play a sport. You can be a bigger part of a team and still, impact a team positively in a different role, on the sideline, cheering people on, coaching, doing different things, but never put your head at risk to deal with long-term effects. And I know that from experience, and I know that if I got another concussion, I could be in a much worse place, and I couldn't even imagine that. So that is the, general basis of my story. I know there's a lot to it, and there's more details that I'm sure I'm missing, because it's not just not simple injuries. But I just want to thank Bailey again for having me on her channel, and I recommend you share your stories, whether that's your physical scars or concussions, or mental battles. So thank you, Bailey, and thank you, Stronger Scars.